You know, I just realized Charlize Theron's first somewhat major role was in That Thing You Do, and that was in 1996. That was 24 years ago. It kind of makes me feel old. The Old Guard stars Charlize Theron as Andy, the leader of a group of mercenaries who are immortal. They've remained secret for years until one day they get exposed, and now have to do what they can to remain safe, all while training a new recruit, played by KiKi Layne. This movie was directed by Gina Prince-Bythewood, who also directed Love and Basketball and The Secret Life of Bees. And she's a solid director, as seen here. But what's really notable is that this was written by Greg Rucka, who co-wrote the original comic book that this was based on. I haven't read it, I don't know how faithful to the source material it really is, but I gotta imagine if one of the co-creators is also writing the screenplay, it's gotta be mostly faithful. I thought that was interesting, since you don't normally see authors or comic book creators write their own adaptations. I did find the concept for this intriguing though. It mixes the feel of stylized action movies such as Kill Bill or John Wick and infuses them with superhero elements. I wouldn't call this a straight up superhero movie though, the characters are never regarded in that way, and beyond their immortality they don't have any other qualities like super strength or anything like that. They mainly operate using weapons, but we do get a lot of flashy quick cut hand to hand combat. I didn't find them to be as good as the other movies I mentioned. At times this can feel like a generic action movie, especially ones that we've seen in the 2000s, but for the most part I found them to be pretty enjoyable. They keep the film moving at a fairly quick pace. When we see the team fighting as a whole, they act as one cohesive unit and play off each other well, so that was fun. I'd say the first half of this movie works a lot better than the second half. One of the stronger elements would be the discussions they'd have as a group, where they talk about how they feel about being immortal. All of them, Andy especially, have been around way longer than they'd like to be. They've seen a lot, they don't know how to break this, and I found them reflecting on everything to be some of the stronger parts of the movie. Especially since Charlize Theron is just a captivating lead. I'm really liking that she's been used more in action movies in recent years. Mad Max Fury Road is by far the best example of this, and like in all other action movies she's been in, she goes into full-on badass mode here. She takes total charge of every scene she's in, she plays well off her co-stars, especially the antagonists, and she's also captivating in the more emotional scenes. I truly enjoyed her here. I also want to point out one of the mercenaries on this team is played by Marwzan Kenzari, and if that name's not familiar to you, that's Jafar from the live-action Aladdin movie. He got a lot of crap for that role, and honestly, I didn't think it was the best fit myself, but his acting skills in general are good, and it's nice to see them on display here. His character's backstory gets explored a little bit here, and we see them touched upon in bits as the movie goes on, and I thought those were some of the more emotional highlights of the film, so that was nice to see. My absolute favorite parts of the movie, though, were centered around the teaching of this new recruit, Nile. KiKi Layne, who plays her, she gives by far the best performance here. If you haven't seen her act before this, I would highly recommend checking out If Beale Street Can Talk. She is phenomenal there, and she brings a lot of that same passionate energy here. She just discovers she has these immortal powers, and she's trying to grapple with how to deal with them. She's coming to grips with leaving her old life behind, and she worries about her family and what they may think of her. It's all very compelling, and she just crushes it here. Anything involving her were some of my favorite scenes. But the second half, I wouldn't so much call it bad, but it definitely pivots away from what they were going towards in the first half. It kind of puts a halt on a lot of the characterization that it was building up. Like, after the halfway point, it only sparingly touches upon it. Especially, we don't explore as much of these powers as we should have. The immortality is something of a mystery to the mercenaries themselves. They don't fully know how these powers came to be or how to break them, if there are even more people in the world like them. They just know how badly it bothers them. They go into this stuff heavily in the first half, but not the second. Instead, when we hit the halfway point, that's when it really begins to feel like a generic action movie. We have a villain played by Harry Melling, and if that name's not familiar to you, that's Dudley Dursley from the Harry Potter movies. And he's a greedy pharma CEO, and he wants to experiment on the mercenaries and get their DNA. And it turns more into just this battle between him and the mercenaries rather than exploring any more of their backstories. So that was a little disappointing. He's also very cartoonish, which was fine. It keeps in line with how comic book villains are portrayed. I feel a lot of them are cartoonish to a degree, so it was fitting. It's just, this was a much more serious movie in the first half. So to then just do a 180 like that, it's kind of like, okay, what's going on? Also, characters will just shift in motivations multiple times, and rapidly to boot. The one who was the most confusing was Chiwetel Ejiofor. He's like kind of a villain. He works with the greedy CEO, but he has different motivations than him. Sometimes he helps him out with no problem, but then the next second he's weary of him, but then he helps him out anyway, and then he does something and feels bad about it a second later. It's very frustrating, and it underuses him big time. But he's also not the only character who does this, which is also very frustrating. Despite this, it was still an entertaining second half. I like the action scenes. I still found myself enjoying the movie as a whole. I just think that considering what they were building up to in the first half, there was potential for so much more. Overall, I enjoyed this. It's a fun action movie with some stylish fight scenes that will certainly appease fans of the genre. And the performances were, for the most part, fine, with the biggest standout being KiKi Layne. It also touches on some great themes, mainly the idea of what would it be like to be immortal. That being said, the movie itself also isn't great, mainly because a lot of those themes I just mentioned get tossed to the side or get downplayed in the second half. And while it's still fun, its shift in tone is just a jarring pivot that some will find off-putting. But it's on Netflix now, and while it's not the deep movie that it could have been, it's still a fun time. The Old Guard gets a 7 out of 10. So even though things are still a little slow in the movie world right now, this weekend in particular is still big for streaming releases. We also have Greyhound, Relic, and Palm Springs also seeing release. I'm gonna try my best to getting to all 3 of them, but I do have a special series in the works, and the first part of that will drop Monday, so stay tuned there. So let me know, did you see The Old Guard, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like the action? Did you read the comic book series, and was it truly faithful to the source material? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you next time.